patch them. And not only do we break our device, we actually try to break all of the devices in the space. And whenever we find the vulnerability in a competitor's hardware wallet or software wallet, what we do is that we, inform them, make sure that they patch the vulnerability first, and then we communicate about it in order to enable the researchers and the other people in the space to understand exactly where the vulnerability lies and how they can patch it. The second challenge is actually education and user experience. I think if you think about the different ways through which you could lose your assets today, there are a lot. Kind of agree on the fact that a hardware wallet, and Ledger specifically, protects you from a hack automatically. We agree that it also cannot protect you from a mistake. And when I say a mistake, it doesn't mean that the fault is yours. It means that the user experience did not allow you to detect the mistake before you could commit it. So one of the biggest mistakes people tend to fall for, these are actually like well-crafted and designed scams, or what we call blind signing today. And blind signing is the act of signing a smart contract without necessarily knowing the ramifications of that signature. So you're blind signing because you do not have the information available to you at the moment of signature that enables you to read the smart contract data in a human readable language. So it's kind of like signing an insurance contract while being blindfolded. You're signing based on trust. We call it YOLO signing as well. So it's not really the best way forward in order to secure people's assets. And the reason why blind signing exists is because this space is so complex and it has evolved so much in the past few years that in order for us to solve blind signing, it's not only about the hardware provider, it's about every single DApp out there implementing plugins, enabling the hardware or the software that's interacting with the DApp to actually read the smart contract data, so it's the hex data, and then translate it into human readable form that you will be able to understand. So this is kind of a very big problem that we're trying to tackle today, and we'll get into like how we're trying to tackle it. But if you look at like the amount of scams that have happened across the past couple of years, a huge majority of these scams are blind signing scams. So it usually starts with someone reaching out to you on Twitter, or some influencer on Twitter tweeting about this new drop that you really need to mint because it's going to mint out very fast. You end up going to the platform, you think you're going to be minting an NFT, you end up signing a smart contract allowance that sets approval for all of your assets, and then in a click of a button someone has actually stolen most of your valuable assets out of your wallet. So blind signing is huge, and it's kind of a dual challenge between education and user experience. And last but not least, this is the user experience challenge that we're facing, is the fragmented aspect of the interaction with the Web3 environment. Not only do you have different DApps, you have different chains, you have different protocols, you have a variety of different middlewares. So if you actually own a ledger and you're interacting with the DApp, you can do it through Ledger Connect, you can do it through MetaMask, you can do it through Wallet Connect. So there's like a fragmentation of the user experience, and with very little guidance on what is the best way to actually interact with a certain application. And this is also something that we're going to be talking about in a minute as one of the main challenges that we're trying to solve. And last but not least, obviously, the seed phrase. This is a huge topic. I think we all kind of understand the reason why the seed phrase exists, and the reason why it exists is because the hardware wallet, or the wallet in a more general sense, is such an amazing invention. Because it's kind of like a master key. It allows you to generate an infinite number of private keys. And a private key, just one private key of one account that sits in your wallet, is a series of 256 alphanumerics. So imagine if you had to back up every single private key and write it down. It would have been impossible. So the mnemonic seed phrase, or the recovery phrase, is a way for you to actually combine all of those private keys together and put them in a series of 24 words that enables you to be able to back up those keys. They could be hundreds of different keys associated to different accounts in a pretty user-friendly way. The problem is that this is a single point of failure. people tend to use the seed phrase. You could also get compromised by putting it in the wrong place. Obviously, you have to keep it offline. You don't have to take a picture of it, and you have to find the right way for you to secure it. So there are innovations happening on how to be able to secure the recovery phrase. One of them is obviously Ledger Recover. I assume some of you have heard of it, and happy to answer any questions related to that after the talk. But thinking about the evolution and the innovation that we're having in the space and trying to make sure that there are a variety of different use cases that are available to people and thinking about the future, this piece of paper is a single point of failure and will need to solve how we are able to secure it in an effective way. So that is obviously one additional challenge that we have to tackle. Here you go, sir. All right, so going into how we overcome these challenges. Obviously, that's what I was talking about, is having the ability to have different accounts and then backing up the key to secure all of these accounts. The security challenge has been somewhat solved. The security challenge related to the recovery phrase hasn't been yet. And obviously, if you think about what we were talking about earlier, is really the hardware itself being really secure when it comes to generating multiple keys and securing them. The reason why it is super secure is because it has evolved from a technology that was already really secure, which is what we call the chip and pin technology. It's what governments use to secure your biometric passports, and this is what banks use to secure your credit cards. So the chip and pin technology has been used for the past decades in order to secure very valuable secrets. We're using that same technology in order to enable you to secure private keys. So in terms of the hardware itself and whatever is held inside of it, in terms of the secrets, that challenge has been somewhat solved. And what we have to focus on today is obviously recovery phrase and the user experience. And what is also very interesting in the Ledger security model is that once you generate the keys on the device and you start interacting with different DApps and you initiate certain transactions, what's also secured by the device, what we call the secure element chip inside the device, so that's the chip and pin technology that I was talking about, the display itself is also secured, so it can be tampered with, which means that you can be confident when you verify certain information on the screen that it is truly what's happening on the smart contract and on the back end side of things as well. So yeah, the device itself is secured by a PIN code. You don't choose the recovery phrase. The recovery phrase is basically generated by the device at the moment of initialization, but you do choose your PIN code. We highly advise people to choose an 8-digit PIN code, and that PIN code is obviously your way to unlock your device on a day-to-day basis. If you do lose your device, whoever finds that device will have 3 attempts into guessing the PIN code. If the PIN code is entered incorrectly 3 times in a row, the device factory resets, which means that the person that found your ledger are probably going to be able to use your ledger in the future, but not with your keys. So there'll be, the device will be factory reset. It will be, completely, all the data will be completely erased.
So we talked a lot about hardware innovation, but as we said, our ambition is really to have mass adoption. And to have mass adoption, we understood that hardware is not enough, and we need to develop a full experience and ecosystem around the hardware. That's why we created and launched Ledger Live in 2018 to have a one-stop shop for your digital assets. So people, as I said, at the beginning of the Ledger journey, when the enterprise was created, they were using Chrome app to manage their Bitcoin, their Ethereum. And we decided to launch Ledger Live so that they have one app, one companion app for their ledger that they can use to set up their Nano, to synchronize their ledger, to add a crypto account, etc. And we added services. So now you can buy crypto, you can sell crypto, you can stake asset, you can manage your NFTs, and you can also access a lot of services. So everyone is able to have his services supported on Ledger Live. So you have Comet, for example, that is a blockchain game that you can access on Ledger Live. You can buy crypto with Binance on Ledger Live, and the crypto will be sent directly to your Ledger account. And the difference between Ledger Live and MetaMask or software wallet, as Mo was saying, is that here the private key is still on your ledger. So Ledger Live will be the interface with the blockchain, but you will have to sign all transactions with your ledger. So here you have some examples of NFT partners that we integrated in Ledger Live. So for example, you have Object, so that people and Ledger users can see their Tezos NFTs. You have Rainbow, it's the same, it's a seamless way to display your NFTs. You have POAP. We also have Club NFTs that has been integrated recently. It has been created by Artnome, that you probably know on Twitter. And this guy was an OG, and he bought some NFTs at the beginning, and he discovered that the metadata of some NFT disappeared because, as you know, the NFT is the technology, but it's linked to the metadata. And if the metadata is offline and that the data, the server that own the metadata is goes bankrupt, etc., you can lose the metadata and your NFT becomes an empty shell. And so they created these services so that you back up your NFT and you make sure that it's the metadata is always online. And the idea with Ledger Live is really to aggregate a lot of different services so that people and Ledger users have choice. They have freedom. So for example, here you have the example of the buy feature. As you can see, we are adding a lot of different services. And then our users can choose a partner or another depending on their payment method, the countries, the provider they like, etc., etc. And so the question is, why should I use Ledger Live rather than another services? And so, for example, you have dApps like Paraswap here that you can use in Ledger Live, but you can also access these services directly on your browser. But the main difference here, and we talked about that with Mo before, is blind signing and clear signing. Ledger Live is like a safe haven. You're sure that when you sign a transaction with your ledger on Ledger Live, it will be clear signed. Because when you want to use an application like Paraswap or another one, or 1inch, for example, you will have to install a plugin on your Ledger device before using these services. And as Mo was saying, smart contracts are super complex. And so with this plugin, your Ledger will be able to transcript and decrypt the smart contract details in a human readable way. So here you have the example. It's exactly the same transaction that we did on Paraswap with your Ledger connected to MetaMask and on Paraswap on Ledger Live. And as you can see, you have the warning for the blind signing when you're using it with MetaMask. So if there is a man-in-the-middle attack, maybe you're signing something that is a scam. Maybe you're sending all your ETH to someone else, for example. You don't know what you're signing. On Ledger Live, you will have all the details. You have the name of the dApp. You will have the detail of the amount of Ethereum you're sending to the smart contract, etc., etc. So everything is clear sign, and that's the main advantage of Ledger Live today. But in addition to Ledger Live, we also recently launched a Ledger extension to improve the user experience of our users. So for now, it's a beta. It's available on Safari only. We are working on the Chrome support. And it works with your Ledger Nano X. But soon it will be compatible with the Ledger Nano S Plus and Stacks as well. And so why we developed the Ledger extension? It's because, as we said, there are a lot of friction in the user experience. And today, most of our users that are, for example, in the NFT space and that want to have self-custody, they use their Ledger with a software wallet. So they will import their Ledger account in Phantom, for example, if they want to manage Solana NFTs, or they will connect it to MetaMask. And so we developed the Ledger extension to be able to connect your Ledger directly to the dApps you want to interact with. So it's pretty simple. What we are doing right now is that we are implementing possibility to directly connect your Ledger to the dApp. So when you connect your wallet, you will see the Ledger logo. For example, on OpenSea, it's already the case. And then it will prompt the Ledger extension, and you will connect in one click. You connect your Ledger hardware wallet to the dApp in one click. The browser extension, the Ledger extension, is not a hot wallet. It's really a way to connect your hardware wallet to the dApp directly. But now let's talk about the most common scam with Mo.
Yeah, so like just to kind of recap, what we were talking about is everything related to the security model of Ledger, the way it protects you with from hacks, and then we started diving deeper into like the user experience and the fact that despite the fact that you're protected from hacks, most of the compromised assets today in the space are actually compromised through scams. And scams are kind of like mistakes. We need to provide a better user experience in order to enable people to be able to detect those mistakes. And those are some of the biggest scams that are currently happening in the space. We'll show you some of them, and then we'll show you how Ledger Live plus Ledger Extension can help you detect some of those red flags and mitigate the risks associated with scams. So obviously this doesn't need Ledger Live and it doesn't need Ledger Extension. It just needs a little bit of caution and common sense. But you do have a ton of fake people roaming around social media, especially people that are disguised Ledger customer support agents. If you do receive any message from a support agent on Reddit, Twitter, Discord, just kind of automatically know that they're someone who's trying to scam you. Most of the time what they will do is that they will redirect you to a fake Ledger website. It's either by replacing the L of Ledger with an I, or changing a letter in the URL. And that will kind of lead you to blind signing at some point. So it's kind of, when we talk about like a scam type, it's not only, most of the, pretty well-designed scams are actually a combination of a variety of different tactics combined together into one social engineering situation. We do have that as well. They do come back when the market is a little bit more dynamic, but the fake collection offers that you get, Ledger Extension will help you with that because it will simulate the transaction before it actually happens. But be very careful what you tend to accept in a rush. There are like a variety of different like fake offers that you could end up receiving, and with the emails that you're getting constantly, it just takes one click of a button if you're using a software only solution, and a couple of clicks if you're using the hardware to accept a 7 USDC offer on your mutant instead of a 10 ETH or whatever. You also have like the fake collections. That's also something that usually happens when the NFT collection is just dropping. So if like, imagine there's a drop happening at the moment and you're not on the allow list, but you still want to get that NFT, what you're going to do is that you're going to go to the secondary market. And obviously because the drop is just, happening at the moment, all of the collections that will be on secondary will look very similar in terms of volume and number of holders. So the tip there is just try not to be first, wait for a little bit, and most of the time, you will have a significant difference between the volume traded on the official collection and the volume traded on the fake collection. Also, the number of owners will differ significantly, so keep an eye on that. I think these are like the scams that we, unfortunately, a lot of the people in the space tend to fall for. Address poisoning is one that is actually a pretty OG one. It's one that started with Bitcoin and is coming back with NFTs. So address poisoning is actually a pretty interesting tactic. An attacker would detect an address of yours, and then they would generate a public address that is similar to one of your addresses. So let's say you have account A and account B and account C. You're often doing transactions between your account A, B, C. An attacker would design a public address that would look close to your account C, and they would send you what we call dust transactions. So dust transactions are transactions that contain a very little value of sats or ETH, and the idea is that they will keep sending you transactions so that their address is in your log as one of the addresses that you've interacted with the most, and that will lead you to sending them a valuable asset by mistake, because you would mistake your one of your accounts with their account that they have actually designed specifically to look like one of your accounts. So how we're kind of working on this as well, and we'll talk about it in a second, is that we obviously integrated ENS with Ledger Live. And other than that, the ability for you to be able to verify the transactions on Ledger Live will give you like that second layer of security when it comes to address poisoning. And then you obviously have phishing links that are related to NFT collections. This is also a very interesting one. Sometimes you would have an NFT collection, and that different assets from this collection would be airdropped into your wallet, right? The thing is that these collections, most of the time, developers have taken away the transfer function from the smart contract. So you can't actually transfer that NFT. It just sits in your wallet. And then what they would do is that they would send you like a 5 ETH offer on that NFT. You would try to sell it. You can't sell it. However, you go to the official page of that collection, and you would have a floor, an insane floor, and you probably have the link to the website. You click on the website and be like, okay, for some reason I'm not able to sell the one that I have in my wallet, but it seems like there are a few ones that are available to me right now, and I can buy it for 0.1. And on the other side, I'm getting, I'm getting 5 ETH offers, right? So it seems like a good deal for me to buy a couple more till I figure out how I sell the one that's in my wallet. And obviously, this would lead you to blind sign the transaction. Instead of obviously buying the NFT, the transaction would be taking some of your assets away from you. There are so many examples of scams like that. We could spend the whole day talking about like how people are getting creative to scam people. And the idea is that what we're trying to do is to develop the technology that would enable you to detect yourself the red flags before you end up making a wrong decision. Obviously, this is the smart contract allowance transaction that you would probably be signing in the case of the social engineering example that I just gave.
And so I talk about Ledger Extension as a way to connect easily to dApps, but we also added a security layer on the product to avoid our users being scammed. And it answers exactly to what Mo was saying. The idea is that we implemented 2 main features, security features. The first one on the left is Web3 checks. So you will be warned when you interact with a suspicious smart contract. It will analyze the smart contract you are interacting with before you sign the transaction, so that you will know if you're interacting with a scam or not. And then we have the wallet preview feature on the right, and you will see clearly before signing the transaction what will leave and what will enter your wallet. And so here are a few examples of what we call the scam filters of Web3 checks. So we'll be able to see if the website on which you are is blacklisted or not. So we are working with chain analysis or chain abuse to have some data about this website, and we can then send warning message to our users. We will also look at Etherscan and give you some details of the smart contract. So for example, the age of the smart contract. So if you're interacting with the smart contract of an NFT collection that has been created 5 years ago, and when you are on this website, you want to interact again with this smart contract, but you have a warning message saying that the contract has been created yesterday or 2 days ago, it's probably a scam. Same for first interaction. If you already interacted with the smart contract in the past and you see this warning message, it's probably a scam. You can also check the type of addresses. So if you think that you're interacting with a smart contract, but you have this kind of warning, it means that you're interacting with a public address of a scammer. It's not a smart contract, it's a public address, and you will probably lose your fund because you will send all your ETH or your NFTs to this person. And then there is, as we said just before, a warning message when you are about to transfer all your NFTs. And the wallet preview feature, where you can see what will leave or enter your wallet before you send the transaction. So you clearly see the number of ETH that will be sent to receive an NFT. So for example, if you are minting something and you see that you will send 10 ETH instead of the mint price, it's probably a problem. And you will also see that you will not receive any NFT, but you are sending ETH. So it's probably a scam. We also have warning message for the allowance and the give access for all your NFTs. And finally, for seaport order, so offline sell order that you can see on the right, and that is also something that we see a lot in scams. But now let's talk about best practices with Mo.
So yeah, best practices and like how to avoid hacks and scams. Mostly, obviously, how to avoid hacks. Just use a ledger. That's kind of a pretty easy one. Then in terms of like the scams, obviously everything that we're focusing on in terms of the user experience to provide you with clear signing, with ledger extension, the wallet preview, and all of that is being rolled out at the moment. But there are, I would say, three main things that you could do in the meantime in order to increase your security from, level of security by, a few points, a few significant points. First of all, obviously never share your seed phrase, keep it offline, make sure that it's kept in a fireproof, waterproof environment. Don't tell anyone where it is. This is kind of, what most people know, hopefully, in the space. The second one is a little bit more complex, but it's highly effective. It's called asset segregation. Who knows what asset segregation is? Yeah, a couple of people. Okay, cool. So if you think about your device, as we were talking about, like the ledger itself is a master key. It can generate an infinite number of accounts. So you can have 6 different Ethereum accounts, 10 different Bitcoin accounts, whatever, Cosmos, Polkadot, all of these accounts can be generated and secured by your ledger. The interesting bit is that the security of these different accounts are kind of independent from one another, so as long as you don't lose the seed phrase. Meaning that if you sign a malicious transaction with Ethereum account A, the assets in Ethereum account B are not affected by that malicious transaction. Which means that if you are actually interacting with a variety of different platforms and you have different assets, if you segregate them into different accounts, you are actually mitigating the risks associated with losing some of these valuable assets. So let's say you could have a vault wallet that you never use to connect to anything and that you never use to sign anything. And then you could have what we call a warm wallet. And this is a wallet that you have with certain assets that you know that you would use to interact with certain token gated services related to that ecosystem. So say you own a mutant or you own an ape and you want to be staking your ape coin, you will still have to sign transactions, but you could have a warm wallet that would be dedicated only to your ape and within, utilized only within the, Yuga environment. And then you could have what we call a mint wallet. And this is a wallet that only has a little bit of ETH to cover for gas fees. And this is the wallet that you use in order to interact with new drops or to interact with websites that you're not necessarily familiar with. This is just one example. You could do 10 different wallets for different use cases and depending on the different collections that you hold. But thinking about your ledger as a master key that can generate multiple accounts and understanding that the security of these accounts are actually independent from one another. So as long as you don't lose the seed phrase is really, really important in kind of increasing your level of security and feeling comfortable interacting with all of the amazing things the Web3 space has to offer. And then the last one that is super important is understanding allowances, smart contract allowances. So let's say that we go back to the example of the Vault, Warm, and Mint account. And that using your Warm account, you have a couple of apes or mutants or whatever, and you decide to sell one of them. And when you decided to sell it, you did not transfer it to another account to sell it. You actually sold it directly from your Warm wallet. If you do that, you would, most of the time, if you haven't sold any of these assets yet using that smart contract, you would have to provide the smart contract allowance to the marketplace that you're selling that asset on. So you would give the smart contract of the platform the permission to take one of those assets and list them. So if you're listing an asset for the first time, let's say you're listing your mutant for the first time, you would have to sign 2 transactions. The first transaction would be to provide the marketplace with the permission to move that asset, and the second transaction would be to actually enable them to list it. However, once that is done, you actually have to provide that permission only once. And if you don't revoke that permission, it will always remain there. So if you actually sold an asset from a collection that you are not planning on sending any other assets from in the short term, make sure you go to revoke.cash and revoke some of those smart contract allowances. If you've never done that, I highly advise you to visit revoke.cash and check out all of the smart contracts that have rights to move your assets. If you haven't done it before, it's pretty scary. So just go, scary to a certain extent, depending on which platform and which assets. But always make sure to keep an eye on what the permissions that you've given, and revoke some of those permissions if you don't want to be sustaining them in the long term. Last but not least, obviously, Etherscan is your eyes and ears. Understanding how to read Etherscan is going to be very valuable to you in the long term, but also in the short term if you're interacting with new jobs, being able to check out the contract, the age, the number of holders, the number of transactions that have happened there will kind of provide you with the information that you need in order to make a right decision and to detect red flags if there are any. And obviously, knowledge is power, and we'll end on that. I think we kind of recap where we started and where we are. We talked to you about everything related to the ledger security model, what we're doing to provide you with the infrastructure, enabling you to keep yourself secure from hacks. And then we got into the scams and how it's related to the user experience, how Ledger Extension and Ledger Live can enable you to detect scams, and provide you with a little bit of best practices. But I think in addition to all of that, there's kind of an umbrella that is always going on top of every single thing that we're doing, which is education. And trying as much as we can to develop our educational ecosystem through, Ledger Academy, which hosts a wide variety of different content formats, articles, tutorials, videos, and podcasts. But aside from that, we started exploring doing education the Web3 way. So we launched Ledger Quest, which is our learn-to-earn platform. You can basically go through a variety of different quizzes, and you can earn proof of knowledge NFTs, which are considered to be on-chain certifications, non-transferable certifications. And if you do hold some of these in your wallet, you're able to benefit from a variety of different things within the Ledger ecosystem. And then we also did education through gaming in the Ledgerverse. We're launching our fourth experience, and we're launching our second experience in Alpha Season 4 of the Sandbox this year. And it's kind of a gamified way for you to learn and earn NFTs as you go. So, thank you for being here, and feel free to scan this QR code. You actually can answer a couple of questions using Ledger Quest, and you can get this pretty cool POK NFT by Kaibo. So make sure you do that, and we'll be at the Ledger booth for the whole conference, so you can drop by, we can chat and answer any questions that you might have. And I think we do have a few minutes for questions. We have 5 minutes for questions here. So if any of you have any questions, we're happy to take them. Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. It was quite interesting. I just asking right now, for example, when I see the transaction which is going to be signed with Ledger, I just see the transaction, and I don't understand what will be the final state for the wallet. Any plans maybe having a simulation of this transaction in the fork of the network, so at the final I can see what will be my balance after interacting with this contract, because right now what I see only, for example, the set of the commands, and it's in imperative way when I need to understand all these commands to understand the final state and understand the logic of the contract, which can be quite difficult. What I would like to see, if you can create a fork and simulate this transaction with the wallet, and I can see the final state of my wallet after executing the transaction.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point, and thank you for that feedback. That's definitely what we're focusing on with Ledger Extension. is the wallet preview feature that Noe was talking about will actually simulate the transaction before it occurs, and you'd be able to see the end state of the transaction before you have to sign anything. So that will be available through Ledger extension, and obviously we'll try to make sure that wallet preview would be also functionality that will be available elsewhere in the future.
Okay, thank you. And also, like last but not least, the question. I heard lots of rumors about Ledger wallet seed phrase to be exploded. Uh, like any plans of like not just making the full firmware open source, but maybe at least this part which is responsible for storing and saving your seed phrase, so users can be secure that there is like no risk of having your seed phrase be extracted out of the device.
Absolutely. I think there are two components here. So obviously, Ledger Recover as a service is really something that we've been designing for the past couple of years, and it goes down the line of everything that we've been doing for the past 10 years, which is providing different options for different people to be able to self-custody their assets. Because the end goal here is to enable people to own their keys and to be self-sovereign. The second thing that you're talking about is mainly related to obviously the PR crisis that happened a couple of weeks ago related to the launch of the product and a lot of the misconceptions that were shared across the internet and social media. And I think one of them is obviously related to the ability, the evolution of the attack surface, which is someone getting the ability to be able to extract the keys out of the firmware. That obviously has been audited and tested by the Donjon, but also by a variety of like different independent security audits. And the ability for us to open source the firmware fully is going to be developed as we go with our open source roadmap, but we will be limited in the way we open source it because we are using the chip and pin technology that we mentioned, which has a ton of different patents that we cannot open source. So obviously providing more transparency and developing our open source roadmap. I mean, if you look at Ledger today, it's obviously probably 98% open source. Ledger Live is open source. Our everything related to the developer portal, the integrations of applications and all of that. But when it comes to the actual technology that we're using that hasn't been developed by Ledger, which is the most secure technology out there, Ledger hasn't been hacked. 0 hacks in 10 years and 6 million devices sold thanks to the technology that we're using. So open source, yes, fully open source will be very hard because we are using military grade security technology that is not proprietary to Ledger.
Okay, thank you. And the last question from my end, like I am from a Rarible marketplace. I work as a Rarible marketplace.
Rarible. Love Rarible.
Yeah, thank you. I see that in the application I can swap tokens directly. Like any plans like of having NFT tokens being purchased with the wallet directly. What if we can have like a partnership and you can list orders from Rarible marketplace and users directly in the application in a secure way can purchase an NFT token the similar way they purchase, for example, Ethereum, Bitcoin, USDC.
Would love that. Let's talk. Partnerships. We love doing that. That's the guy for the Ledger Live partnership. So you have him right here.
Yeah.
Definitely, integrating more services into Ledger Live is definitely something that we're keen on doing. And Rarible, is an amazing marketplace. So we'd love to work with you guys.
So just like maybe we can exchange contacts and
Yes.
elaborate and how some create a vision of such integration. And maybe I think that this is kind of future because like if you can buy directly in the application, it's very straightforward. You don't need to switch to another application or website,
Amazing.
sign transactions,
Let's
and you're
talk
more
about that.
secure.
I think we're out.
Okay.
We're out of time. Maybe, Arthur, do we have one more or one more? Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, guys.
Last question. Anyone else? Okay. I guess we're done. Thank you so much.
Thank you.